word, about metadata templates, and there have been some side discussions on that. I just wanted to let you all know that that effort is going on as a community effort, and you know, honestly, the consortium is, as we're working on the system, we're also working on process, and so this is a chance to sort of bootstrap and learn about the community engagement process. So these slides are a little bit old now, but they're handy. So metadata templates is there a clicky? Yeah. I'm not going to go in great depth, maybe just to talk about what the intent of this is and see if you guys think this is interesting. So the idea is that iRODS AVUs are sort of terrible as a way to store metadata, really, in the sense that they don't have structure. So what iRODS is really good at is policy, and more as you see from the discovery environment talk and other talks we've seen about managing computation. So iRODS is really good about ingesting files, extracting metadata, keeping them as AVUs, but you can't search it very well, and you also can't store the metadata as structured data. So again, we're interested in things like linked open data and how you can use iRODS as a platform under that. So how do you get from AVUs to that? That's the idea. So we store metadata as just a bag of AVUs, and we want to use metadata for things like data discovery. We also want to use metadata templates to trigger actions in the rule engines or through pieces of analyses to drive computation to derive new metadata to apply to data sets. So that's what metadata templates, that's the scope of what it's trying to accomplish. So let's see, the first part is the ingest or curation of metadata in the sense that we want to make sure to give administrators the ability to define metadata they would desire, metadata that they would require in the sense of, a set of structured elements, validation criteria, default values, things like that, prompts for users so that forms could be created, or even through iCommands, there could be an iCommand to enter this metadata, and then the ability to validate that metadata, and then marshal it into AVUs or even another designated metadata store. So that's what metadata templates are for. So we have this idea of a reference implementation that we're working on right now, which stores metadata templates as JSON data inside iRODS, and then uses AVUs to bind these metadata templates to collections. So the idea would be that you could have a public set of metadata that people could use because it's nice, and then you could also enforce metadata by saying this metadata template is required on this collection or collections beneath. And we get into ideas about finding, by searching up the hierarchy to find out which metadata templates win and doing composition and so forth. So you can get to some really powerful solutions. Okay, so the idea is that you have a user interface where you're viewing the metadata in forms with widgets and squiggly graphics and things like that. That form is created by taking a metadata template and merging it with the iRODS AVU. So there's the idea of handling marshalling and unmarshalling of that data. So what can you do? You can, again, take these templates, put them in there as an administrator, and then you can bind them so that the users working in those collections can have requirements to enter structured metadata. You can have curators come in and validate it and so forth. Let's see. Really what I want to say is there is a working group on this currently. We already have some prototypes. This would be available, for example, within iRODS rules and microservices to do things like validation. We've already demonstrated things. In that sense, there is also a REST API. The idea is that it would be available in that format along with some additional help to derive hints and things to create different kinds of data entry forms. So the idea is how to define the templates, how to bind them, what do they contain, and then how to marshal data in and out of those templates. Okay. The one idea I wanted to mention in regards to this too is this idea of using a metadata template to, instead of create a user interface, but to essentially say that data deposited in a collection would cause a procedure defined by the metadata template to run. That could be an iRODS rule. It could be a Docker container that is running next to the data. It extracts the AVUs, and then it maps the output parameters of that process to the data that's stored within iRODS. So in this way, you can dynamically, by collection, bind processes to do metadata extraction to any file that's placed in there. So that's a really powerful way of starting to dynamically resolve rules based on, you know, that's sort of just adding an AVU and doing a sort of a declarative mapping. So I just wanted to say that's out there. If you go to iRODS.org, I think you can find information about the template working group. And I know there's about 8 different people working on it, so it'd be better to work together.
Thank you, Mike.